Today we play golf.
Let me show you how we do it in the pros.
Welcome to Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
I never miss with the 7-iron.
A conversation with some of the most interesting innovators and entrepreneurs behind the biggest names in golf.
My friends with the golf clubs. I lived on the golf course. I lived on the driving range.
From pro talk.
You should learn something from each and every single round you play.
To fun from on and off the green.
Why would you play golf if you don't play it for money?
Just let me put the ball in the hole.
This is Behind the Golf Brand Podcast with Paul Liberatore.
What's up, guys? Paul from Golfers Authority. Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand Podcast. This week, I have my good friend Martin Wyeth from PowerTee. Now, you guys probably don't know who PowerTee is, but you probably used PowerTee a lot, especially if you go to like range facilities. And it's really kind of cool how they started. And I want to share this story about how they've grown, and it's just really cool technology. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. It's great to be on your show. Really, really looking forward to chatting to you and answering your questions.
Where are you located right now exactly?
So right now, I am in Ponte Vedra, Florida. So the infamous 17th green of TPC is about a mile that way.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That's the Intracoastal behind me. Donald Trump's that way in Miami, and New York is that way.
But you're not. But you're not from Florida originally, right?
No, I'm definitely not. No. I joke.
You kind of sound like it a little bit, but I mean,
I can do a good y'all, but I'm getting there. But yeah, originally from the UK, and struggling to lose my accent.
Somebody was trying to tell me the other day, and I told them they were full of crap. They're like, "Oh yeah, you learn your accent when you're like a little kid, like under 3," and I'm like, "That's bullshit. That's not true." I'm like, "No, it's true," and I'm like,
It's a weird one. All my kids were born here, and my American friends think they sound English, and my English friends think they sound American. So,
oh yeah, of course. It's like I remember when I was in college. I mean, it's kind of true a little bit. When I was in college, I was in college in the Midwest, and like near Chicago, and I remember my friend came and visited me, and he goes, "You from Arizona?" And he's like, "Hey, you have an accent now." And I was like, "No, I don't have an accent. I've only been here for 2 months." He's like, "No, you do, for reals." And then the way I said it, I'm like, "Oh my god, I do have an accent. Where did that come from?" That's really weird. But I guess it's this adaptation, right, to like whatever's happening this where you're at.
Yeah.
You grew up in England, so like, how long have you been playing golf?
Oh, I have been playing golf since I was I guess I started properly playing golf in about my mid-20s. So about 30 years I've been messing around with golf.
Like, but you're not like a professional golfer, right? Or a pro?
No, not even close. I've been down to a 2 handicap, which I didn't find. Oh yeah.
You're
It
the
wasn't
man,
much fun.
dude.
You have to grind.
It wasn't much fun. So I started this journey. Well, not golf, but like I never like had my handicap. I was like, oh yeah, I was pretty good. Like I shot in the 80s when I was younger, and then I got a job and a life and kids, and I got really bad and I didn't have time. And then, but this year I tried to figure out what my handicap was, and it's like I think I was a 24 when I started, which is terrible. And then, but like this summer, I've been I've been practicing a lot and like playing a lot, and I got down to a 19 in like 3 months. So I'm like, okay, cool. But now everyone's like telling me, oh, it's all about your short game now. Like you want to get to the next 10, you got to like dial that in. I was like, okay, that's true.
Yeah, a stroke a hole is nice. Yeah, but yeah, the short game, it depends. It's different for everybody. It really is different for everybody. And they say it's drive for show and putt for dough, but you can't score low if you don't hit the fairways. So you gotta have a long game, for sure.
Yeah. So when growing up, did you play at all as a kid, or not really, not until you're in your 30s?
So
Or 20s?
I had a set of hickory shafted golf clubs when I was, I don't know, it would have been under 10. I'd whack them around in the garden, and the garden wasn't big enough. The yard wasn't big enough, so balls would fly around. I would have probably played a lot, but we didn't have that kind of lifestyle when I was a kid. So
it's different there, right? In England, like you have to join a club and all that stuff, right? It's mostly.
Yeah, there's a lot of municipal golf, but your parents have got to show an interest. You can't drive yourself to the golf course. We didn't live on a golf course. You certainly don't have the golfing lifestyle here, where you can live on a golf course and walk out your backyard onto the course. That doesn't exist in England, but for the very few.
So then when did you really like start playing for real then? Like in your 30s?
In my in my mid-20s, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was involved. I'm a technologist. I was inventing stuff, and at one point, I was involved in a electronic scorecard for golf before smartphones. And a guy invited me to go play Wentworth, and I didn't want to embarrass myself. So I thought, well, I better figure out how to not embarrass myself. So I was having lessons to try and, just basically to be less than spectacularly embarrassing. And that sort of started to get into it, started to enjoy it. Every now and then I'd hit a great golf shot. You think, wow, that was, it's addictive. You hit
You
a
feel
good
like a
golf shot.
badass. You're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I
Yeah,
can
you
do
want to
this.
do
And
it.
then the
Yeah,
next shot's like terrible. And you're like,
yeah,
maybe I
absolutely.
can,
Yeah, for sure.
Where did you grow up in England then?
In the southwest, so around the triangle of the UK, in the bottom left-hand corner was sort of there, where it's countryside, a rural upbringing. Yeah, still miss it a little bit. It's a beautiful place, but
I mean,
prefer
Florida
Florida.
looks a lot like it. So, I mean,
Sort of, yeah. Florida's a
yeah,
lot
right.
flatter. It's it's not quite as green, and it's not quite as green. Certainly not as cold.
Especially right now, right?
Yeah.
So you grew up in England, and then did you go to university there, or did you come to the States?
I did. Yeah, I studied engineering, went to Liverpool University, and I also went to University of East Anglia, two okay universities for engineering. Sort of enjoyed it. I like technology. I've always loved technology since I was a kid. My hobbies were trying to, build stuff, make things light up, make things spin, make things do stuff. That's my thing, really.
When you got out of college, like were you inventing stuff? Were you an engineer for somebody, or what was happening?
So when I graduated into the 90s recession, and there was, every year through college, I was getting offers of jobs. Been that college, come and work for us, this, that, and the other. Then when I
Yeah.
finally graduated, there was nothing out
It's
there.
like crickets. You're like, now what do I do? That happened to me too, by the way.
So I was odd jobbing around London to pay the rent, and while I was looking for something to do. And I ended up working with a guy who was a sort of inventor who out of Hampstead, London, and I was designing all kinds of crazy stuff for him.
Like what?
I did a book that speaks to you. That was before everything speaks to you. Everything talks to you now. But back in the day, I designed an electronic book that you open the pages, and if you pointed to something, it would give you some verbiage.
That's kind of
No, that
cool.
was pretty cool.
That's back then in the early 90s. Like there was nothing like that back then.
Yeah, no, oh no, it was of its day. It was absolutely of its
There's
day.
stuff like that 15 years ago, but not 30, right? Like
Yeah, no, that was state of the art back then.
it was
And
like a $5,000 book. They're like, oh, you can buy this $5,000 book, or you can get the paperback for £5 if you want.
well,
So,
you'll get this. A lot of guys won't get this, but the choice of media was between audio cassette, like digital, like audio tape,
I just,
and it was just at the very beginning of digitized audio.
oh wow, so like way early. There wasn't probably even CDs yet or anything.
No, it was pre-CD, yeah. So it was way back, and a lot of the challenge was actually getting good quality audio out of a digital medium.
So then how'd that technology work? Like somebody would have to read the book and then
Yeah, you'd open the book. It had sensors in the page, capacitive sensors, the same capacitive sensors that are buried in your iPhone screen. And again, they had to be developed. They were not off the shelf. That was a challenge too. Did some work for the brewing industry as well, some monitoring stuff, bulk packaging of the brewing industry. What else did I do? Brewing and beer and golf. What else? What else are you going to do?
it's like the perfect job. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So anything I was designing, I guess, design consulting, and I tried to specialize in anything that had never been done before. If it hasn't been done before, I'm attracted to it. I'm a sucker
Yeah.
for punishment. If it's been done and you just want it a different color or a different size, I'm not really that
Well, it's not really
interested.
designing, is it? That's just painting a different color and
Sort
using a
of,
different
yeah. I mean,
thing.
there's design elements to it, and that's
Yeah.
what a lot of engineers end up doing. But there's no fun in it as far as I'm concerned.
How long were you with that company?
Well, that I did as a freelancer, so I was doing that for probably a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and I always wanted to launch my own product.
Which
If
was
you
hard to
do
do
this,
back then too, right? Like it isn't like it is today.
oh, it's hard. It's hard. It's still hard. I mean, when
True.
you launch yourself into the unknown,
You go into the
you
arena and then you have to
yeah,
like,
you're basically
yeah,
going in with a new concept. You're cannon fodder for every man with an opinion is gonna
tell you
tell
how
you why it
stupid
won't
it
work.
is and why it
Yeah,
doesn't work. And,
yeah, yeah. There's nothing easy about doing something that hasn't been done before. So I was looking for products. I messed around with this scorecard, this golf scorecard, which was quite cool.
what was it, like a
Uh,
calculator or something?
it was just a little, bag tag. It was going to be a Christmas gift kind of deal. And the Wentworth guys took it to prototype, and then they pulled funding. They didn't want to do it any further. It's you're talking tens of thousands in tooling before you get your first thing, and then
Prototype, and you
100
haven't even sold one of them yet. You just have a prototype,
yeah,
right?
yeah. You got to put in so much money up front on the strength of a dream that it's fundraising is tough. I like Elon Musk's saying. He said fundraising is easy. You just got to ask enough people, and that's true. Sooner or later, someone's going to come along and say, "Yeah, I can afford it and I want to do it." Those are the two things you've got to establish.
That's a good
Um,
idea. I'll help you with that.
yeah, I've got enough money to be able. Yeah, you don't want to take off money off someone who can't afford to lose it. That you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing them any favors because your chances of success. I think the Harvard metric is new company, new product, new management. There's a 1 in 10,000 chance of success. And if you don't
Wow.
accept those odds, you shouldn't go into it.
Like people think I'm crazy. They think like they're like, oh, I can't believe you. Like people would rather stay in their lane or like not take the chance or take the risk or like they're like, how do you do that? How do you figure that out? And it's like you just spend time learning it. Like you just do it. Like I don't know. I mean, that's really what you do. It's trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. What point? Some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sensible way to spend your life. It really isn't. You've got to have a reckless streak in you, or you're not going to do it. And one thing I'm pretty good at is just jumping. If you stand on the edge of the deep dive board for a long time, you're going to go cold. You're gonna walk out. You've just got to look at it, say, yeah, I think I can make that, and take the jump, because otherwise you're going to freeze up.
And
It's
ask the right questions too. Like hopefully have the right people around you that can like help guide you or have been through it or like even though it's a
yeah,
different product or like they might, hopefully have like some kind of support around you.
that's definitely step two. Once you've decided you're going to do it, you've got to get the right people in, and your real champions, your Mark Cubans, your Elon Musk, they know how to spot the right people and how to put them very quickly in their place and interface them with one another. Most of us don't have that skill, so you've got to learn it. And learning it, so it's a long process.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight either. It's not like even with people, like you have to know it within by learning from your mistakes, essentially with the wrong
Yeah,
people, and be like, that's a red flag or that's an issue. Or you're at Wentworth for 3 years then?
and it's getting to be a while ago. So yeah, I guess I was messing around with that for 3 or 4 years before the idea for PowerTee came up.
So how'd you come up with the idea for PowerTee?
Well, it dates back to that Wentworth engagement. I was trying to figure it out. I'd had my lessons, and if you've had PGA Pro lessons, it starts with the grip. You get your left hand, you get your right hand, then you address the ball, you get your posture. There's a big checklist of things you go down before you finally take a whack at the ball. So I'd go down the checklist, get in position, hit the ball. I was a slicer. From what I remember, I'd probably get way ahead of the ball with my body, hit it with an open club face, and the ball would go sliding out the side of the range. Real big boomerang slice. And then I'd pick up the ball, let go of the club, put it on, go through the same checklist, and then I'd take another swipe at it, and I'd hit a really great golf shot. One of those ones that just seems to keep going. You think it looks like it's got wings. And I'm standing there thinking, well, what did I do different? I went down the same checklist, and yet one went that way and one went that way. As an engineer, what you do when you're presented with a complicated system is you break it down into pieces and you try and isolate the bit that isn't working. I thought, well, hey, wouldn't it be cool if after taking a swing, I could just change one thing, whether it's your grip, posture, timing, tempo, position with respect to the ball, and then take another swing and see whether it makes the shot better or worse. So it's a very standard diagnostic technique. It's absolutely prevalent in almost all sports. You try and narrow down what's going to make you perform better. And if you think of it in terms of a racing team, an IndyCar team, you get a guy out doing test laps, you tie him in, you think, wow, he's averaging 140, 50 miles an hour. You wouldn't bring that guy in, change the tires, change the engine settings, change the gearbox setting, alter the aerofoils, put a new driver in it, and then send it for another 10 laps, because you'd have no idea whether those changes were cancelling each other out. You'd listen to the driver, obviously, you'd tweak one thing, but I don't think you'd change more than one or two things before going and trying it again. And that way you home in on improving the system. And really that's the sort of the essence of PowerTee, is get yourself into a groove, start swinging the club, and then try and figure out cause and effect for you. And golf's a very individual sport. You look at the different swings on tour, it's fascinating. It's wonderful. They all do it in a slightly different way. And that really was, that was the idea. Simple as that. It's not very complex. It's a fairly straightforward concept, and that was PowerTee. That's how the idea got established.
When did you? So you had the idea for PowerTee, and then how'd that all start? I don't know, what was the fruition of that idea? You just thought about it and you're like, hey, it'd be really cool if, and then
yeah. So I mean, the inventor part of me, to any aspiring inventors out there, would be to say your absolute number one talent has to be destroying your own ideas, because I've met so many people out there who've let bad ideas destroy them. Marry themselves to a concept that they haven't seen before, and think it's really cool, and just spend their life chasing that rainbow. So what I'd do, I'd have maybe at the time, if I'm in a creative sort of mindset, I'll have 2, 3, 4 ideas a week for what might be cool. And what I always do is squash them. And in this case, it was very easy to squash the idea. You just said, well, look, calculator, it's going to cost about $5,000. The Rangers they're not thriving businesses, they're small businesses. No one's going to spend $5,000 on one of these machines. Forget it. So I didn't pursue it, but I kept learning golf, and I kept thinking, man, this would be really, really nice. And ultimately, I think it popped into my head, whether it popped into my head because I'd heard it somewhere else or whether I invented it, the idea of just charging a penny a ball. So, every time a ball pops up, let's charge a penny. Takes the capital cost away from the range owner. If he's not making money, he doesn't pay you. So I did some sums and thought, man, you put these machines out there, as long as they work, they're gonna, if you tee up 500 balls a day, that's $5. And if they last for,
and that's $5 on one PowerTee.
Yeah,
so they have 30 of them, right? Now you're making
So you look at it,
it's essentially microtransactions that doesn't really affect it because it's just based on performance, right?
Yeah, and I've since learned, I've since learned that Xerox really, really did that. They started it. They couldn't sell photocopiers for love nor money because they were too expensive. So they just stuck them in people's offices, said, put your original in here, press the button, and out comes a copy. And I think maybe it was 5 cents, or maybe they were even a penny a copy. But they would do that, and that's what made Xerox, I believe. I've read the case study. I'm sure it's relatively true. So I don't think I copied it. I think I reinvented it. But regardless, it made the whole idea made sense. Now it wasn't just an idea; it was an idea with a business model. we went out. I built a prototype, which I could
What year
obviously
was
do.
this?
It was early 90s, I would guess. Um, we were formed in 96, and I messed around. I didn't do anything with the idea for a good few years. So it's going to be early to mid 90s that I had the idea. And I was busy doing other stuff, so it was a back burner kind of deal. When it became a front burner, really, was when I built a prototype. I made a couple of decisions. One was to deliver the ball from below ground to protect the machine and to make it clean looking. And the other was what I found was when we showed it to golfers, and it was, it was a real clumsy prototype. Um, they just fell in love with it. It was astonishing. They'd see the ball come popping out of the ground, you press the button and get your tee height, and it's like, oh my goodness, let me get on it. And it was a prototype, I think the tee was made of a piece of garden hose. So they're whacking away at it and saying, man, this is awesome. When can I go and use it at the local driving range? And so, that gave the idea enough steam for me to go out and start looking for investors. And I think I eventually found I don't come from a wealthy family. So, a few £1,000s was an enormous amount of money back then. Paying a mortgage and, feeding yourself. Straight out of college when you can't really earn a lot of money is a challenge in itself. We found some micro investors, and managed to build a rolling prototype, which we put on a trailer, took it around, showed a few driving range owners. And out of 20 people we showed, or I showed, I think about 6 of them said, man, that's cool. I think I'd be interested. If you can get that to a point where it's, so you think, well, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good ratio. So I built them, got it close to production. Quite interestingly, I think those 6 people who said they'd be interested were among the last people in the UK to actually buy it.
For reals?
Yeah, they were right at the back of the queue, right at the back of the line.
They're all
So
talk.
don't believe everything you're told. But they did buy it.
So you developed it. Like, how long did it take to develop from prototype to like sellable product? Like 6 months,
Probably a year and a half of part-time fiddling, and I learned in order to get it into production, I learned how to use a lathe, I learned how to weld, I could do the electronics. That's what I'm qualified in. I learned how to use a milling machine, and built these things. And so the first ones that went in the ground, I tested them in my basement. There was a little knocker knocking the ball off the tee. So you knock the ball off the tee, it would roll around back into the hopper and then come up again. Had about 10 of them going around in circles. And to test the thing to 2 million balls takes about 8 weeks non-stop. So the basement's down here, bedrooms up there, you could hear it running at night. It's just this clunk, clunk, and we got to 2 million balls, checked out the mechanism, thought, man, I'm a genius. How incredible. So I built 3 of them and put them in at the local driving range. Man, the golfers destroyed them in about 2 days.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was
like how? Like, what did they destroy? Like the tee or the ground?
Everything.
Everything. Oh man, I'd be so pissed.
So the hole where the ball comes up, if you're hitting down on a divot, you're hitting right on the edge of that hole. We didn't have enough padding yet.
Yeah, it was probably cracking it. Or...
The mats would tear. So the mats would tear within a week or 2 weeks. So we had to put more cushioning there, more padding around it. Had to create a path for the club to not break everything. The hopper lid originally was 2 feet behind the golf ball. So the back of the hopper lid. So that's 24 inches. The ball is that big, and people are hitting the hopper lid. I'm looking at it going,
why are you so far back? Stupid.
But when you get to learn a bit more about golf, you know that the club you're trying to hit the driver on the way up. So the low point of the club is, anything from 18 to...
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, so
you're lower of a swing. Yeah.
And if you describe a wide arc, you're actually a perfect driver. You're only really that far above the hopper lid. So when you get tired, if you come in a bit early, it's not what you should be doing, but it's what you do when you're learning.
So did you have to make it bigger then, or what did you have to do?
Yeah, we had to move the hopper lid back. Vibration was a huge issue for us. We had bolts, nuts and bolts would just fall off because of the vibration. So they all had to be nylocked on. They had to be vibration proof. Any brackets that were long in vibration, they would stress fracture. You had a lot of issues with weather issues, with small animal ingress, with spiders blocking
Small
optics.
animal.
Oh yeah,
They're
mice
like
getting
living in
around.
there. Rats.
Yeah,
and stuff.
oh man, mice get in and out of them. You get cables chewed through. This is an outdoor environment. You're on a golf course.
Yeah,
You
true.
better live. You better live with it, because if you can't live with it, you die with it. So the first machines we built had to be literally rebuilt within a month, because they were just
It was almost like your
desperately
beta test. Like, even though it wasn't beta, it was like, yeah,
It
we
was
think we have a good
free.
product, but it was essentially bug testing and finding all the
It
real
was
problems.
pre-beta, absolutely
Yeah.
pre-beta. It was a real lesson in humility. You got something that you think is great because you've done 2 million balls through it, and then it can't last 3 days
Conceptually,
on
it works
site.
perfectly. It's just, can it handle the wear and tear of a driving range being hit all day long?
By amateurs, yeah. And people do their Happy Gilmores and
Especially back then, right? Because the movie just came out, and then people are like,
yeah,
"Oh, what
yeah, plenty of Happy Gilmores. So we reissued it after a month, and then we reissued it again after 6 months. And then at the 6 month mark, it became, I would say, almost of merchantable quality. And I say almost, so it was right on the line. But we would sell them. And the other thing, so the thing that we discovered in this really interesting period was we stuck these machines in at a quiet little driving range in the middle of almost nowhere. And people were driving from 40 or 50 miles away to come
Shut
and
up."
use this thing. Yeah. In
Really?
England, that's huge. I mean, in England, if you drive 50 miles, you're passing at least 4 golf courses. So to have people talking about it on this radio, I would overhear people talking about it.
Oh, hey, they
It
got
was
these really cool new things. You gotta check this
exactly,
out.
exactly. So from there,
It's funny you tell that story because there's a golf course that is a muni by my house. I grew up on this course, and then the last two years probably, they've like invested heavily in the range, but not like the outer range, but like where the hitting area is. And they put the shot tracer there, and they put like chairs there, and music's playing. It's almost like a Top Golf now, but not, right? That thing, there is a waiting list every day to use the freaking driving range at a muni, because it's like the thing to do. It's cool. Everyone sees shot tracer technology, which is like, big whip did you do? Bring a freaking launch monitor. You see the same thing, but it's like, there's nothing else like it. It's like the exact same scenario. And they're like, there's people on a waiting list for 30, 40, 50 minutes waiting at the golf course for their turn to hit the driving range. When there's a driving range down the street that's half the price, this is a regular old driving range. So it's like,
yeah,
it's true.
it is amazing. It's amazing what's happened to golf in the last 3 years. Put something new and cool and exciting in front of the consumer, they love it. Everyone likes something fun and cool.
And
And
new. That's what it is. Like something I have not seen that's the same old,
yeah,
especially at the driving range. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think the PowerTee was probably one of the latest in the last 100 years, big innovations when it comes to driving range technology, right? It's like usually just a pad of grass and you hit it out in the grass area, and then a tractor comes by and picks up the balls. Like, I don't know. Like, seriously.
yeah, I mean, it's not a new idea. Since I've been doing it, I've discovered that it's been done many, many times before. I guess my approach to it was slightly different. I looked at it as a training aid, and we've always stood by that. And the other thing is we've been a bit more persistent. Because really that few months that I described to you of the problems, that was the start of a 5 year learning curve. What happens in the summer doesn't happen in the winter. What happens in the autumn doesn't happen in the spring. And these cyclic issues of materials in high and low temperatures, of different
Because you're in
environments.
England, you're not in Florida, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's in England. It's like you get all the seasons, and it's super cold.
yeah. I mean, we used to. So
And
the
it
old
rains a
Mark
lot.
One, we would detect the ball leaving the tee by pumping air up through the tee and looking for a back pressure. A ball only describes a very small back pressure, or creates a small back pressure. But we changed the rubber formula in, I think, April or May, because our tees were, we're always trying to improve. So we changed the rubber formula. All our customers said, "Oh man, that's magnificent! Yeah, great. These tees are lasting twice as long. You're brilliant." We got to November of that year, and one day the phone just lit up. And all of our customers all over were saying, "Our machines aren't detecting, they're not going down automatically." And what had happened with the drop in temperature, the rubber was starting to adopt a memory. So instead of being round, it was being oval. And the oval wouldn't seal against the round golf ball. So the detection just quit. So every one of our customers fell over in the same first week of winter.
So what do you do? Like now you're scrambling, right? You're like, oh shit, now we got to go to all
Well,
these
first of
places
all, we
and,
had to figure out why every single machine in the country fell over at the same time. And so we dialed into a few. We had dial-in even back then, and we figured out that we were getting no back pressure. Then when we inspected the tee, sure enough, they were oval, where they were being squashed by the club. So we had to go back to the old formula of rubber. And it's those kind of learning curves that they're really painful, and they upset the whole company. For most of that 5 years, everyone in the business had to be capable of going out and servicing a customer, because if they weren't, the customers wouldn't be working, and our
you lose a
reputation.
customer in a very short amount of time. Like if it's a week or two, you just lost that customer. They're like, you just closed my business, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, they had to stick with us. So if you spoke to our customers when we ended the Mark One product, they would have said you pretty much in unison, "Great product. My customers adore it. They absolutely love it. But my word, is it a pain in the backside to keep running. And it is tough." And it's, we knew very early on that we weren't in a position to grow with that technology. But then getting to the next level and developing the next machine, which had hundreds of thousands in tooling requirements and. So we were effectively selling a substandard product to engineer to fund the engineering of a better product, which I guess.
But you didn't know, though. But you didn't know.
We sort of did.
The Mark One, you knew that this thing is going to be a hot mess.
Well, we sort of knew that it wasn't a scalable entity.
I see.
So the design philosophy was to make it indestructible. So we made it hydraulic. And it was, give it credit, it was pretty hard to break. But what that didn't mean is that it didn't break down. And so if your customer wasn't tech savvy, and really our only tech savvy customers were farmers who incidentally started to
figure it out, because they have to figure out everything anyways.
Yeah, they were great. They have tractors, combine harvesters, you name it. They're good with it. They were great. Everyone else struggled with it. So what we did for the next one, we switched design philosophy. We made it a little bit less robust, but much easier to service. So everything in it can plug in, plug out. The customer can change anything with two screws.
That's smart. So now you made it more like plug and play. Like if things break, it's like,
so we'll
pop out that thing and we'll switch it out. Not like, oh shit, we got to work on this thing.
The Mark One over here in America, we wouldn't have lasted 3 minutes. The travel costs, the sheer size of the country, they're not a prayer. But now, anything breaks down, we give all our customers spares. They put their spare in, take their broken one out, ship it back to us. We not only fix it, we give it a full once over and send it back to them. And that's, that really, when we switched from Mark One to Mark Two, was when we went from having a dream to having a business. And that was a 5-year mess. And then we immediately became a pretty successul company.
When did Mark II come out?
About 2004, I would say.
At that point, how many PowerTees were in use?
In the UK, we had about 400 machines out there.
How many customers is that? Like 100 customers, or is it like 50 customers?
No. They averaged about 30, 40 customers.
So the the way it works is like a driving range comes to you and says, "Hey, we want PowerTee." You're like, "Okay, cool," and they'll buy X many PowerTee units. Is that what?
Yeah, so that's how it worked at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we very quickly learned, if you've got a busy driving range and you put 5 machines in, they just cause a big problem because people wait in line for them. In the early days, I'm not proud of this, but it sort of amuses me a bit. We had multiple fights over PowerTee. People would hit a bucket of balls and they'd try and reserve the bay while they ran off and get another bucket of balls. And someone would say, "Well, no, you've had your turn, it's my turn now." And I think at least 4 cases, we had people literally violence broke out over a PowerTee.
Like you cut it in line.
Yeah, yeah. Which is how much people wanted to get on it and use it, which was sort of really quite strange. So what we do now is, you come to us. If you're doing $1 million a year in range balls, we'll tell you need this many machines. If you're in, sort of
you have the data now, so you know exactly
we can help people. Yeah. So really, really very rapidly in England, it went away from being a training aid to being a growth tool for driving ranges, selling more range balls. Because a byproduct of PowerTee is that people hit the ball a bit quicker.
They spend more money while they're there. Yeah. They'll buy more balls.
Yeah. So in the example you just mentioned of your local range, if they're charging by the bucket and they're selling, 100 balls an hour, when we come in, that immediately goes to about 140. And that's not because the golfer's rushing, it's because they've always got the right tee height. The ball is always teed up for them. They're not messing around.
Well, it's a machine. It's like this. You're not spending 30 seconds to tee it up, figure out what you're going to do, blah, 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 blah. It's like practice. Okay, I'm done.
So if you're rhythm training, it helps to stay in the rhythm. If that's if you're looking at tempo and timing, there's nothing wrong with hitting the ball relatively quickly. It helps to ingrain that rhythm. So we became a business growth tool. Now, we're in about 85% of the UK's driving ranges. It's quite incredible. It's
a must-have. It's like you're a necessity, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, why don't you have PowerTee? Everyone else has PowerTee. Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll have to get it.
Yeah, I mean, no one would really take you seriously in the UK if you expected your customer to do the ghastly thing.
So who doesn't? Oh, I know. That's so
how awful,
caveman-like.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, so the 15%, like, why have they not jumped on board? I mean, that's not that big of a population. 85%, you have the market share. Like, what do you think makes them not want it? They're just like can't afford it, too small.
I think most of them it's a personal thing. There's a guy in London who has a very big, busy driving range, 60 Bayer, which is right next to our biggest customer. He's a very wealthy guy. I'm not going to say who it is.
Yeah.
But he plays tennis and he doesn't want an auto tee, and it's that simple.
I mean, it's a choice, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we know his numbers, and he's doing about a third the business per bay of the range up the road that's got PowerTee. So he's wealthy enough that he can afford to lose that money. And
when did you guys come to the United States?
We came with biblically bad timing in 2009.
Oh, that's good. That's amazing, especially in Florida. That's a really good place to move to in 2009.
We love Florida. We do absolutely love Florida. And we came here for 5 years to set the company up and get it going. And we walked into the most incredible brick wall you can conceivably imagine.
For real?
Yeah. I mean, so you have
all this confidence, right? You like leave England with all this confidence, like, yo, we have 85% market share. Everybody has our stuff. We're gonna come to the United States and we're gonna crush it because
we'd even been invited to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen.
For real?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we got a Queen's Award for Innovation. I shook hands with Her Majesty and we had a little chat and that was
She's
a fun
like,
day.
I don't like the PowerTee. I like using it regular tea. She's like, I don't need the PowerTee. I have servants to do that for me. And
I don't think she was a golfer. We didn't talk about that.
She's like, what's a PowerTee? Is that a luncheon where you drink hot tea?
Yeah. Yeah, we basically at that time we had three choices. I love technology, so I was sort of I'm not really big on running companies. I like designing stuff. But we were looking at it. We've created this spectacular product. It's going crazy. I think we made about $2 million profit in that year, and we figured, well, look, do we sell the business and move on with our lives? Do we move into Europe and consolidate, or do we go to America, where they spend $1 billion a year on range balls?
Really? It's
And
also the biggest market, right? It's the biggest
oh
market
yeah,
in
it's
golf.
the American golf market is about the same as the rest of the world combined, all over. It's huge. It's absolutely vast. So we came to a PGA show. We walked around, looked around, and
Did you get a
spoke to a few
booth or did
people.
you just go to the show?
Yeah, we got a booth in the British section. There's a British section every year that's sort of partially funded by the government. And we spoke to a few people and we listened to
Just
the range owners, and they
yeah.
sounded a lot like British range owners to us. So we decided that we weren't probably being fair to ourselves if we didn't give it a go in America. It's such a big market.
Yeah, it's gonna be a regret, right? Like if you didn't do it and you like, oh, we're gonna do Europe and blah blah blah, and gave it 10 more years, it's gonna be like, yeah, but why? Let's just
Yeah,
go for it.
absolutely. You
Like,
you hit the nail on the head. If we didn't try it, we'd always think, what if, you know?
yeah. Oh, we're the biggest in Europe, and they're like, oh yeah, big deal. Now it's 10 years later. Are you coming to America yet? Oh, and now we're coming to
Yeah,
America. Well, it's like there could be a competitor now that's doing the same thing, or like
yeah. So that was it. That was the decision making process. So we came out. We spent a lot of money. I'm going to say we've probably spent about just over $1 million
on what
setting up inventory, immigration, legal, technology,
facilities.
FCC approval. We bought half. I mean, it's short form. We bought about 500,000 in inventory and about 500,000 in cash, and we spent whatever on ins and outs.
And that's just to
We
get on the ground product here, ready to start selling to people. But that doesn't necessarily mean you sold one PowerTee to anybody yet. You're just getting
no,
established.
no. So what we did, I think, before we actually moved, my wife and I, she was pregnant with our first child, and we flew into LA because California is a huge golf market, and we spent 3 months in hotels driving around up and down the five between LA and San Francisco, just canvassing all the big ranges. We'd already researched them. We had an American employee before we came, and he'd been phoning around and booking appointments. And in that 3 months, we signed up about $2 million worth of lease contracts because we leased the equipment
Brilliant.
straight out of a clear blue sky. I wouldn't say it was cheap. We got about halfway through that trip, and I think we were fit to lose our minds. It was just hard.
You're exhausted.
Hard. Yeah, well, you're one hotel to the next, to the next, to the next, day in,
With the
day
same
out.
pitch, same stuff, same.
Yeah,
Hoping to
yeah,
get this, hoping to get the sale.
yeah,
You have all this money you just spent. You're like, yeah, it's stressful as hell, and you're traveling, and she's pregnant.
yeah, yeah. So we were stopping. I think we had one scan in San Francisco, one in LA, and had some interesting talk about healthcare because a baby is classed as a pre-existing condition once you get pregnant. So we couldn't get health insurance, which was sort of interesting because a premature baby costs about $1 million. That was quite interesting, sort of making those decisions. We were offering, our offer was, well, come in, we'll fully automate your range or however many you need. We used our English formula. We'll put them all in, have them free of charge for 3 months. If you like what it does, sign a lease. If you don't like what it does, we'll take them back out. And we thought it was going to be relatively easy to shift them on that basis. It turns out that, America's pretty skeptical of us British people. And I think the acceptance rate on that deal, no cash down, 3 months free, was 1 in 20 would take it. We really
Why?
couldn't, very, very, very hard to get to a reason. And I think my feeling is it's not a cheap product. The machine has to be engineered to basically take a tremendous level of abuse. So I think what people were doing was they were projecting past the 3 month trial and saying, well, then I'm going to have to start paying you $6 a day, which is what it cost back then, which is $180 a month, which over 5 years adds up. And they were just looking at this enormous raft of costs that was going to come at them. And I think where they ended up with was, look, I know my golfers are going to like it, but I really don't believe they're going to hit a lot more balls because they like it. So I'm going to decline. It's too scary, too much. And by this time, '09, the banks had all collapsed and been bailed
You
out.
can't even borrow money anywhere. There's no money to get, and everyone's losing their
Well,
houses.
you just hit the nail on the head. So we came out here, we wrote these $2 million worth of contracts with some phenomenal business people, really grade A plus plus driving ranges. We took those lease contracts to the lease finance industry that we'd already pre-positioned before we came out here. We had 4 finance companies who wanted our paper in '08. By the time we got here in '09, it turned out to be 0. So that inventory that I bought with me all went in the ground. It all started cash flowing on leases, but we couldn't draw any capital against it. So our first challenge in America was basically a $2 million hit to cash flow.
You couldn't get any funding.
Yeah, nothing.
So there was
nothing.
no funding. There was no funding nowhere.
No, absolutely. The credit crunch was absolute blanket. It was at a federal level. It was through regulation. It was through mass liquidity. It was staggering. And one of the guys who really wanted to fund us was in the Carolinas. Lovely, lovely guy, not far from Augusta. I phoned him up after we'd been here in the country for about a month or two. It was, let's phone the funders. And he was almost in tears on the phone. He was a specialty finance company and he just laid off his entire lending staff. And he said, some of those guys have been with me since they left school and they don't know anything else. And he said, but I cannot get a penny to lend. So what he was doing, he kept his collection staff, or 1 or 2 of them, and was just pulling the money back in that he'd lent out. And he was probably our number one hope for funding. He'd probably been a bit expensive on his interest rate, but because he was a specialty funder, he'd have been able to get the deals done. I had some crazy offers. We had a grade A range in California, very sophisticated management, and I offered them this contract. It was a $600,000 receivable. We'd have probably pulled about 500 off it at a sensible interest rate. And after messing around with that contract for ages, they went back to they went back to the customer against direct instruction and asked for personal guarantees, which really upset the relationship.
That kills the deal right there because nobody wants to do
Well,
that.
they had the machines in the ground, so they were sort of hooked. It made me look bad.
I'll be so pissed.
Then they said, well, okay, they won't do that. We'll give you $500,000 against the deal, and then the rest will come to you at the end of the first year and then the second year if they keep paying. And I said, well, okay. And the underlying interest rate was 28%.
Oh my God.
But we were absolutely splattered. We were in real trouble. We were half in America, half in England. England was having the same problems, exactly the same problems. So I said, okay, we'll take it. And then on the day of closing, when we were supposed to sign, they said, well, we can't do that deal. We'll give you $110,000 against this $500,000 contract, and we'll pay you the remainder out over 4 years as the money comes to us. The underlying interest rate on that was 48%.
Oh my God. So they get you. So would you sign that or no? I wouldn't have signed that.
No,
my ass. Change the deal like last second. That's
well, we probably should have sued them in hindsight. There's some very strict rules on lender liability, and they've broken them all. And I'm not a litigious person, so I just let it go. And that's still my policy today. Just get on with your own business, forget it, move on. But in that case, we probably should have sued them, but whatever.
So what'd you do? How'd you get the funding? Or you just
I just kept it in-house. We kept it in-house. We had a meeting. My wife, the guy I brought with me from the UK, who's sort of a hardcore, been with us a long time. The three of us sat around a table and said, look, this is not good. But where we didn't sell those contracts, and okay, we took a $2 million hit in cash, they were cash flowing. Because I hadn't sold the paper, we were cash flowing, 50, 60, 70,000 a month, which was enough to pay our wages, to buy,
keeps
keep
you
the
alive.
customers happy, keep us
everything
alive.
going. Keeps you alive.
So we said,
you're not crushing it. You don't have more capital to spend, but you're like, well, we're okay. We'll ride this out. We're okay.
Yeah, we had no growth capital. There's no way we could grow off of that revenue, but we could survive. So we all sat around the table, and my wisdom, I said, come on, guys, what are we going to do? We can trash this, write it off, go back to England, and we're back where we started. Or let's ride it out, give it a couple of years, the banks will settle down, they'll find a slot, we'll be able to borrow, we'll be able to grow the company. What do you want to do? So, all together, we said, yeah, let's ride it out. It's hard to describe if you haven't been there. But what followed was the recession that followed was absolutely brutal. I mean, the lending did not come online for probably 7 years. We were every year, we were picking up about 2 customers a year. That's all we could fund. It would have been completely disingenuous to sell equity because there's absolutely no way the golf industry was growing. I think in our first 6 years, something like 4,000 or 5,000 golf courses closed. Golf courses were giving away a round of golf with a cart for $20. So the ranges were getting crushed. I'm going to spend $10 on a bucket of balls or go ride around the golf course. Even if I only play 10 holes, I'm in for $20. So it just kept going on and on and on. We have this wonderful technology. Everywhere we do put it, people are loving it. But we just can't grow. Tough times. But we kept with it. The UK survived, but stopped making money almost completely. We had one guy, the owner of a Premier League football club, re-upped on his lease, re-signed the lease on his PowerTees. That was probably that would have been a $500,000 deal as well. And the UK bank said, well, we'll only fund that deal if you can give us a personal guarantee from the billionaire.
Oh, God.
Oh, let me figure that out. Let me get to him and get that for you. So we were it was shell shock, every time you turned around, you lost another 200,000-300,000 and not great times.
But then what happened?
Sorry?
COVID. Then what happened? Then COVID
Oh my
happened.
God. Yeah,
we were exploded like the complete opposite.
We were regrowing and we were finding our feet. I'll be honest, at the end of that recession, we didn't have a lot of gas left in the tank, either personally.
You're just exhausted at that point.
Yeah, right? I mean, we should be minimum of a 10-man team between customer service, installations, all the different things that we have to do to keep our company healthy. You should have 10 people doing them. And we ended up soaking that up between 3 of us. And so there wasn't much gas left in the tank, but we relaunched. You may have seen some of our ads on the Golf Channel. We got a pretty good kickstart. We signed up Jim Furyk, who's just a grade A, awesome individual. I mean, he's so respected in the industry. The thing we like about him, he's got a pretty funky swing. He hits the ball his own way. And that's really our ethos. Figure out what works for you and then repeat it. And not only he's world number 3 still on the money list, I believe, after all these years. Great guy, super well respected, lovely to work with. So we signed him up, put him on the Golf Channel with Mitchell Spearman, got a lot of publicity, and we were growing again pretty good, finding our feet. And then, as you say, COVID struck. So
accelerated everything, I bet.
It did. I mean, for us initially, because we manufacture in the UK government shut everything down, and including our factory. So we had no access to spares, no access to inventory. All of our customers in the UK were closed, but all of our customers over here were open, so they were demanding spares and stuff like
So
that.
what did you do?
So, well, we were breaking open new machines and taking the bits out of them to keep our customers going. So I shut the business down really hard because that's a very finite business model. And then, as you say, very, very big stirring of the pot. But we're now into this amazing COVID boom. And, you know, anyone in the business will understand the term the Tiger boom because Tiger literally re-geared golf. And if you'd have told me pre-COVID that something would come along that would make the Tiger Woods boom years look small, I would have said, forget it. No, no way. It's not possible. But what COVID has done for golf is just literally incredible. And if you love golf, it's great to see. Lots of young people coming to the sport. The golf course is full. The driving range is full. It's
always full. Still full. Now it's down a little bit, I would say, but when you're whatever 500% growth and now it's 495, it's like where it was in 2018 is not where it's at now at all.
No, it's turbocharged. We got customers that are trading at 2 to 3x what they were pre-COVID. And I think one of the things that we've all learned in the business is just how enjoyable golf is. Once you start and you get hooked on it, it's fun.
Yeah, it's like a generational thing. So the Tiger boom was like my generation, or a little bit, where golf became fun again, and then there was a lull for 20 years, essentially, and then a decline, a slow decline.
Yeah. Golf was in pre-COVID. Golf was coming out of depression. From 09 to 16, 17, golf, there was nothing recessionary about golf. It was in a depression. And a typical canvassing call would be, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're selling. I don't care. I'm just not spending money. And we'd hear that all the time. It was tragic what was going on in golf.
So then how many places are you guys in the United States?
We're now in just over 100. It's growing really, really fast. Everywhere we put it, people are seeing big increases in revenue. The golfers are loving it, as they do in England. Families, where kids love it. If you want to get your kid into golf, you've got to put them on a PowerTee. They're gonna hit more balls. They're gonna have more fun. So yeah, we're in this amazing transition from being shut down by the government to, we can't make the machines fast enough.
So the PowerTees still made in England?
They are, yeah. We make them because we're so dependent on quality that, these machines have such a tough life. And we do have components made overseas for cost effectiveness.
But it's different. Those are components. It's not like you're getting it made in China for, a third of the price. But it's going to break and then you have no business. So essentially you have to rely on the quality of the product.
Yeah, we did. Interesting fun fact from COVID. Well, not too much fun, but we used to get moldings made in China, and then everything shut down in COVID. We couldn't contact our injection molding company, and then when they re-emerged after COVID, we sent them an order, and they said, "Who are you?" I said, well, you've been supplying us for 15 years, so here's the last order. Here's the paperwork. Here, guys, this is it. I said, "Oh, we don't know who you are." And I actually hired a private eye over the internet to go in and take a video of the factory, and you could see forklifts coming and going. He managed to go through the door and see some injection molding machines working, and he knocked on the manager's door and said, I'm here on behalf of this company. They want some moldings. I said, well, we don't know who they are. So we lost about a couple of $100,000 worth of tooling. And these tools take a long time to make.
And you had to pay for it to make it.
Yeah. So we had to pay. Yeah, we'd already paid for them. They were well paid off, those tools. So we had to pay to recut tools in England. We made them this time because we figured there's less chance of us losing them again. But what's driving that? I have no idea. That's one of the most bizarre things. So yeah, COVID has been a mixed blessing. It was initially very, very, while the factory was shut And I think we were down to maybe 5 or 10 machines that we could sabotage to keep our customers running. We thought we were done. We thought that was the end.
And
We
then it
were, we
swings
were,
the complete opposite direction.
yeah, yeah. It was an interesting time.
So what's coming out for PowerTee like in 2023? What are you guys doing? Same or anything
We're
new?
we're working with some bigger companies, so we've got a couple of corporate deals going on, which I probably shouldn't talk about at the moment,
No,
but
it's
you
fine.
should. You know, I'm hoping that what you're going to see from PowerTee in 2023 is PowerTee at your local golf range. You're going to love it. You're going to really enjoy it. If you use it as a tool to get better at golf, you're going to get better quicker. If you want to get your kids in it, if you want to take family, we see girlfriends love hitting off PowerTee. So you'll see guys and girls going and enjoying the equipment together. So that's what we hope you'll see from PowerTee in the near future is to have PowerTee at your local driving range. And if it's not there, go in and tell them, put it in. It's I'd happily pay $1 or two. All it costs is $1 a bucket to have PowerTee installed, and from what we hear, everybody sees that as enormously good value for money.
No,
So that's
it's
what
really
I'd like.
cool.
That's what I'd like you to hear. I'd like you to be able to use it. I'd like you to be able to enjoy it. I've spent a good few years getting it into life and a good few years keeping it going, so that you guys can enjoy hitting off it.
I mean, I think it's a really cool product. I mean, I haven't used
Thank
it.
you.
I mean, I read about it and I saw it and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I want to check this thing out. Like just because of technology on it, as well as just, I don't know, it looks cool. I mean, it all makes sense to me why it works the way it works and like why
You
people
know,
value it.
if you drill into sports mechanics, repetition is absolutely fundamental in performance. And PowerTee gives you the opportunity, as long as you're disciplined with your setup, and your PGA Pro will help make sure that you're not, doing anything stupid. You get into position and just feel what you're doing with the golf club. You get better faster, even down to a very, very low level. Furyk hits off it a lot. He likes it because it protects his wrist. He's had a lot of wrist issues, and our mats are really soft. They don't jar your wrists. They don't
Does he have
hurt
it in his
you.
house or what?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. He's got one in his backyard. Yeah, that's my number one wish for PowerTee in 23 is that you guys get a chance to use it and enjoy it and take your family. I guarantee they'll enjoy, whacking a ball off it.
No, I think it's cool. Are you guys going to the PGA show this year?
We will. We've been there every year since we got here, except for the COVID year.
Oh, you don't want to do the
So
online Zoom call and pay $1,000 for that?
we did. We did. We're big supporters of the PGA show.
Yeah. I like going because I like seeing all my friends. Like that's why I
Well,
don't
we're
like
on
going to it.
if you find your way there, we're on the ETC, which is the big driving range at the end.
Oh yeah,
We're we're right next door to Callaway, I think,
It's usually a lot
and
of traffic.
you can try it out there, and we'd love to see anybody there. Yeah, we'd
Well,
love to see you there, Paul.
I would appreciate you being on the show today and telling us the story of PowerTee. I think it's really fascinating, like just to hear about the growth and the trials and tribulations to get to where you guys have been. I mean, it's been a 30-year, growth really, and having to. I love talking about business and like, I don't know, hopefully inspiring other entrepreneurs out there at like, hey, this is what you need to do, or this is how it's going to be, and either you want to do it or not.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit worried when I talk about the PowerTee story because I feel like it might put people off.
I think it's all business are the same story. It's just not, like just having to adapt, right? We're constantly adapting to the situation, and if you don't, you die in the vine. So
Yeah, there's some big moving parts out there nowadays. If you'd have told me that every bank in the Western world would stop lending money,
you were like, yeah, right.
particularly on the back end of I'm sure it got into the trillions, the bailout money. I know the UK just went so deep on
Well,
bailouts.
then of course, like only one person got charged. with any kind of fraudulent stuff, right?
I
You
know,
all
I
these
know.
banks. It's like, come
Yeah.
on, it's like money talks. So
It's incredible, what's going on, and it's all happening at a very high level in government.
super
And
high level, like super duper high, right?
yeah,
Like,
and those
yeah,
guys
it's
can have a
crazy.
very real effect on your life. That's probably the number one drawback to going into business is I describe it as you open up a 6-lane freeway for the government to, cruise into your life and impact on it. That's
Yeah,
unfortunately the nature of business nowadays. But
it's global.
if you can get through it and you win, it makes that victory so much sweeter. And
See, and all you gotta do is stay in England, and none of that would have happened.
no, we would be a lot wealthier if we'd stayed in England. I can guarantee you that. But
Yeah, but
hey,
you would be
this is
the
America.
it's
We love.
America. Everything's
You
bigger
know,
here.
yeah, I don't. I try not to look back too much because the future is what's coming. But on the odd occasion when it's got really tough, and you think, where the hell did I come? I still think, well, I'd still do it. I'd still have done it. You got to do it, and
No, you made the right choices. I think it's great.
yeah, and it's working out really well now. We got a very strong fan base, and people love our technology. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing the kids jumping up and down with excitement when they see that ball come out of the ground, see them stand there, and they'll go through a bucket of balls, and then they'll kick dad off, and then they'll beg grandfather for another bucket. So that's
Exactly.
cool.
It's super
So
cool.
those are tomorrow's golfers. So
Well, thank you
yeah,
for being on the show today. You guys can check out PowerTee. There's probably a PowerTee at a driving range near you because they're everywhere now in the United States. Or
we're getting there. We're good up the East Coast, but there's plenty more to fill out. And ask. If you want PowerTee, go into your local driving range and ask. And it makes your driving range money, and it makes his customers happy. So we're here to supply.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show, Martin. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
You're gonna beat me at golf?
Stay connected on and off the show by visiting golfersauthority.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
Golf is always more fun when you win.
Stay out of the beach and see you on the green.